Salamastarba. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our regular session with Pamela. Pamela is going to talk about dialects and role playing for teaching English. Welcome, Pamela. So we
Thank
can
you.
start.
Okay. So, all right. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, it's on.
Okay. Okay. So this, I know I say this a lot, but this is one of my favorite things to discuss and to work with my students. These can be so much fun, and the students can really find a lot of benefit. Oh, I don't know why that black line is there. English language classroom, it should say. The theme of the PowerPoint covered it up. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. It gives so many benefits of doing this kind of thing in class. So first, let's talk about what like a role play is. So role play is when students have a character or a role within a specific situation that mimics real life interactions and utilizes natural speech. So we want to put them in situations where they would be using English the way that people in that situation would as native speakers or as almost native level speakers would. And a dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. So you're going to have a group of 2 or 3, maybe 4 in these kind of activities, and using that number of people to create this real life situation of whatever they're talking about. So the dialogues can be pre-written or improvised. They can be from a textbook, from authentic materials, or written by the students as an in-class assignment or for homework. So you have the writing of the dialogue is one part of the assignment, one part of the task, and then the presenting it as part of an oral presentation in class in front of the rest of the students, in front of you, as part of the assignment as well. And I want to make a note here. So we have pre-written in the textbook means like that is at the lowest level before you're really asking students to really use the grammar and write on their own. Very, very low level. You just want them to kind of read, get the idea of what information is being exchanged. It's good for beginners before you move on to when they can, write kind of their own sentences. So you can do this as the first step, have them read a sample one in class, and then that could be kind of like the template or an example of what you want them to write on their own. Or you can just keep it as they are writing, they are just reading from the textbook. Or you could, if you know that they're quite advanced, you don't need a dialogue as an example. You can just tell them, this is the situation, write this. Improvised, this is only for the very advanced and the ones that have a lot of, that you know well, and that are very confident. So this means there is nothing written. You give them an idea, you give them the theme or topic. You say, okay, you are the waiter and you are the customer, and you are having a problem, and then they have to, in the moment, come up with their own questions and answers. So this is the best because it's the most like natural speech, but it's also the most difficult. I've only done this with university students. So I haven't done it with below university. I haven't done it with even some of my adult classes Just because you are an adult doesn't mean that you are in the level that is going to benefit from this kind of activity. So most of the stuff that I've done and that other, colleagues have done, and I've watched classes and worked with counterparts and all of that, most of it has been writing your own dialogue and then presenting it. If you want them to memorize it, that's fine. They can read, they can keep their notes. Usually if they've written something and they know it well, they just might want their notes just to help them relax a little, and they can kind of glance at it. But we want to make sure that they're not memorizing without understanding. So you really want to have them make sure you concept check also. If you're going to have them read a dialogue and you say, okay, this student is the first, the mother, and then this student is the son. Make sure that you have that within a whole, treat it like a reading comprehension or a listening comprehension, where you have questions that check the understanding of what is being said. Because memorizing something and repeating it is absolutely useless if the students don't understand what they're saying. So I could bring you a dialogue in Danish, and you read the alphabet fine. It's the same alphabet we use in English, and so you can memorize it, and then you can say it to me the next day. But do you understand what you've said? All the words are different, right? So you just memorizing is not... or just reading aloud. I could give it to you and you could read aloud and I could say, good work, but it doesn't mean you've understood what you have read. So concept checking, presenting new vocabulary, all of that is all those same steps before you're going to have them present something. Of course, when they are writing their own, it's much easier to check that they have understood it because they are presenting their own thing, right? But it's still a good idea to check, especially if something seems like it's very high level for them. So that's part of the steps as well. Okay, so why do we do role-playing and dialogues? What is the purpose of these within the foreign language classroom? And I say foreign language, not English language, because I've done this in every language I've studied. It's just great for any level that you're at and any language in the world. If it's something that's not your native language, these are great. So you do it to review and to master the vocabulary and grammar structures related to the lesson. So once you've gone through all of what you are trying to learn, whether it is medical, tourism, making requests, whatever kind of vocabulary, putting it in that real life situation is really important. That's where the students get the most excited, because that's how they're using the language, right? It's using language isn't just memorizing vocabulary words or being explained a grammar point. It's actually speaking and listening and writing and reading. It's interacting with speakers to give information and receive information and communicate and ask for information. Practicing pronunciation and fluency. So all of those speaking skills. So it's not spontaneous self-expression unless it is the improvised, as I had mentioned before. But you are still getting the benefit of working on pronunciation, on intonation, on rhythm of speech, on how to use, tone, all of that, fluency, the ease and relative speed of how you're talking. All of that is great to use in dialogue, and people can really get great practice doing that. It builds confidence and provides experience with public speaking. This is a big one, and this is something, it doesn't matter what level you are, people can always get more practice public speaking. And I made my 5th graders all the way to, my university students do public speaking as part of the class, because it's already, a lot of people already find it very scary and they get nervous speaking in front of groups. Then you add that it's another language. You want to make them as calm as possible doing that. So a lot of practice in low stress situation, just like in a class, is how you do that. We want to practice the productive skills. So speaking and writing. So these are productive skills exercises. So you could do this every day in your class. You could do this each time you have class. You can end with a role play or dialogue, or give that as homework and then have them present it the next day. Depending on how much time you have for each class and how often you meet, that might be beneficial or not. But you want to have productive skills. Having them write something that they are also going to use their speech for is very beneficial. It develops social skills and cooperation amongst the students. So social skills of working with other students. You have to have at least one other person to have a dialogue, right? So working together, I would recommend putting two students that don't usually work together to do these. And I would want you to mix them up a lot. So I wouldn't want you to have students talk about, choose what they're talking about and also choose their friend. You don't want them always sitting next to their friend and working with their friend. Mix it up a lot. Mixing it where the student, you have a weaker student with a stronger student. I've talked about this before with like differentiated learning, but this is a really good way to do that, is that one that is stronger and understands the grammar structures and the use of vocabulary better can really help that weaker student with working through those questions. And they get to learn how to cooperate, how to deal with students that they don't know well, people who learn differently from them, have different experiences, different backgrounds, and they collaborate and work on something together. And sometimes when you have three, it's even harder. 4 and 2 are easier ones, but 3 is more challenging. And so that might be a good thing to do, a little bit of extra challenge for them. And it's fun. So everyone learns better when they're relaxed and having fun. So you can really encourage them to not be like too serious with this kind of stuff, because you don't want them to, we always learn better when we're not very nervous. If we are nervous, then we're not thinking about what we are saying. We're thinking, oh, the teacher's going to get mad at me if I make a mistake, or, oh, they're going to think I'm stupid. Oh, look, they're bored, or they're, if you are relaxed and, your classmates are supportive and patient, and your teacher is supportive and patient, then you are going to be more relaxed and you won't be so worried about making a mistake or forgetting a word or pronouncing something wrong, or that you have written something that is incorrect. When learning anything, it's been proven that you learn better when you are not under stress. It goes better into you. And of course, it makes you like class more, because you know that you're going to be having some fun, right? So here's just some ideas. This is not exhaustive. There's many more, of course. And usually they are in the textbook. So usually there's like so many dialogues that are already within the text. But some of the classic ones that mix, like a certain kind of vocabulary with certain grammar structures these are just some examples that I put together. So like, as I mentioned before, restaurant. So a waiter and a customer. So what kind of vocabulary would we have here? We would have food. So a lot of different foods. You could make it fun and have foods from a particular country or a particular restaurant. You could pretend you're in a different country. You can pretend you're a tourist. And what kind of language would we? Oh, yeah. And then we could also have utensils like fork, plate, napkin, table, chair, a different table, please. My fork is dirty, like any of those kinds of things. You could have the language be making a complaint, making a request, asking questions, asking for no cheese on my salad, please. Or, yes, waiter, my fork is dirty. May I please have another one? Can I sit at a different table? How much is it? You can have numbers, right? So there's a lot of different kinds of things that you could integrate into something like this. And again, you could make it be kind of silly. The students are if they know that part of the assignment is to make something funny, they will want to be funny. And that will be very motivating. They want to make the other students laugh and you laugh. And they're learning at the same time. I mean, don't think just because they're laughing and having fun that they're not learning. That is, it's really great to see them, be silly and really practice these things and really like get them perfected and mastered. A tourist and a local, asking for directions, asking for information about the city, asking about money, asking about anything that you might, this could also be a great thing to start at the class. Like, which country would you want to go to, or which country do you want to travel to? Which countries are interesting, depending on the level of your students and what kind of grammar structures they are familiar with. And then you can elicit different places, and then you can elicit what might be different there. If you go, what kind of thing would you need to know? What kind of questions would you have? All of that. So, and have them pick some place where they will speak English. Don't have them pick Russia, because then they'll just say, well, I'll speak Russian with them. But places where either there are a lot of tourists and English is the international language, so they could always ask about things in English, or an English-speaking country could be fun. So they could ask for directions. They can ask about hotels. They can ask about time. When does the next train come? I missed my train. When is the next train? The train is at 5:30, right? How much does that cost? And then they can also look up what money they use in these countries. So and you can also turn it into kind of a larger project of like, what are the local attractions? And then so you could also make it a little bit of a content-based class. So they are learning something about another country in addition to practicing this vocabulary and grammar structures. So that's a really fun one. And again, you can make it funny. You can make it that they are in the wrong country. They go to Belgium and they are asking for the Eiffel Tower. And sometimes you have to ask a few people, excuse me, do you speak English? Do you speak English? And then you could even have some of the other students, you could say, oh, can you be in my dialogue for just a minute? You have to say no, or, so yeah, tourist and local is fun. Parent and child, this can be a really fun one too. Or it could also be the parent of your friend. You can ask about if your friend is available to come over to your house or to go downtown to the movies. So permission, this is something parents and child, may I do this? Can I do this? Requests. I want to, commands, the parent will tell the child, clean your room, do the housework, feed the chickens, whatever. What goes along with permissions, requests, and commands is negotiation and compromise. if you clean your room, you may go to the movies. If you feed the chickens, you may watch TV. So you can have a good thing where one asks something, the other says, well, you have to do this. And then, well, if I do this, can I do this? And know that technically can is ability and may is permission. But in a lot of colloquial English, they are used interchangeably. We say can for permission, not just ability. So I say, can I go to the movies? And then that means the same thing as may. So that could be a fun one. Yeah, that they say, if you do certain chores or if you finish your homework, then you may do this or then you can do this. Giving instructions. So a lot of times parents teach their kids how to do something. So it could be like a sequence of instructions. Like first, it could be like making a dish, or a certain way to clean something, or whatever that a parent would teach a child to do at home, the steps to do something. And you can, or making plans. You could say, don't forget, we have to, do this. We have to meet your relatives this weekend. And, oh, but I was going to do this instead. And, oh, well, like any kind of thing that parents and children might be talking to each other about plans, or about vacation, or about, again, just needing to do the homework, make sure you finish this before this, and then we can do this. The doctor or dentist, so talking about ailments and body parts and recommendations, and again, maybe commands, take this medicine, rest, don't go to work for another week, don't eat these kinds of foods. They can say, my stomach hurts, my head hurts, I fell down, any of these things that you would go to the doctor, or I have a toothache, or you could go to the optometrist that works with your eyes, and that could be funny. I can't see, can you see this or whatever? Like, you need glasses. And like, oh, how much do these glasses cost? That kind of thing. Anything that you can do with medical English, doctors, like basic stuff like that. Brother and sister, maybe have them get into a fight. I used to fight with my brother about, if I wanted to watch something on TV, and then he wanted to watch something else, and this was before on demand, so you couldn't just pause it and save for later. It was on TV, and that was it. It was over in an hour. So that could be kind of fun for the students to choose to be like brother and sister, or brother and brother, or sister and sister, and have like a role play. And then that can also lead to conversations about their actual siblings, their actual brothers and sisters, and say, well, do you have this problem with them? And then kind of talking about what the differences are between ages, between boys and girls, between what some are allowed to do or others are not, or what different personalities are like. So those can be kind of fun. And also when you're discussing those things, again, you're using critical thinking. They're thinking about these different kinds of topics and ideas and what goes into them. And so you are adding more things to the lesson other than just practicing words and grammar. Employee and employer. So this could be fun too. And this is really, especially for older students that are getting closer to working or going to university, and then thinking about what kind of jobs they want to do. Discussing job duties. So the employer saying that the employee needs to do something, or the employee asking for vacation time, any of those kinds of things, talking about problems and solutions in the job. Job interviews are a really good one. You can never get enough practice doing job interviews. So having the student, and then again, they have to look up what kinds of questions do you ask in job interviews. What's really fun with this one is that you can do it with improvisation, partly because you can have the student be surprised by what the questions are, and then they answer them improvised, and then the interviewer practices the questions. And so, but both students have to, agree on what job they are talking about, of course, because they have to prepare. But this is also a really good thing for people to start getting ready of what do people ask in job interviews, and what kind of answers should you be prepared with. What it might be really, really fun is teacher and student. So as long as you have a thick skin yourself and don't mind being, a little bit made fun of or something, you can have them, maybe you have one pretend to be a naughty student and one pretend to be the teacher dealing with the naughty student, or who have, crazy questions or something like that. So that could be kind of fun as well. Or you can have two students that are causing problems, or and then the teacher dealing with them. Again, if you have these topics in your book, in the chapters, then it can be a little bit more, that can provide more guidance for what you would actually do in the classroom, and what kinds of language and role plays you would use. The phone. This is a really challenging one, and this is a good one, and it's also really important. So the way that we practice phone is to put the students back to back on chairs, so they can't see each other. And I often make them sit on their hands too, especially if it is a culture where they talk with their hands a lot, like Mediterranean culture, people talk with their hands and use a lot of gestures. And I do too. And so, because we want to, talking on the phone is difficult because you can't see somebody's face. You can't look at the gestures that they are making with their hands. And so that adds a lot of information into what somebody is saying. So the visual is it adds a lot to understanding somebody and communication. So if you don't have that, then you are really practicing your English. I hate talking on the phone, even just in English sometimes. So in another language, it's even more, difficult. So practicing that again in this low stress situation is really good. So you're not actually on the phone, but you can't see the person and you can't use your hand gestures. So put them back to back and have them call something for information. Again, you can use any of these kinds of things. It could be tourism, like you want information about a hotel, or you need to call the doctor and make an appointment. Maybe you're calling a movie theater and finding out about the movie times and the prices. So what's really good about the phone too is that usually when you are using a foreign language and you're on the phone, it's most likely it's going to be looking for certain information about something, right? It's going to be numbers, times, dates, another phone number. So I know we have a lot of things online now. We can look up information about things, but it's still good to, sometimes you will have to actually call. You can also call and make a complaint. This is kind of funny. It's kind of fun thing to do. And it can be funny. I had students one year, they wrote this, but they could have been a phone exercise, but they wrote the complaints of the worst hotel in the world. So they had to write a formal letter to the hotel saying, this is really bad. I want a discount, or I want my money back. And you need to change this, and all of the ridiculous things that happened. It was, of course, not very realistic at all, but Gave him a lot of practice. So yeah, asking to spell things, that's a really good one too, because you might have to spell your name or your address over the phone. So being clear with the letters and how they're pronounced. So all of those kinds of things. And this is also in any kind of the role play, numbers and spelling and, time and money and all of that is really good to practice as well, because those are not something that we practice a lot all the time in our classes. So it's a really good way to have it be part of, again, mimicking that natural speech, mimicking those regular environments that you would actually speak natural speech in the first language with native speakers. And so I've already mentioned this, make it fun, encourage them to have fun with it and make it silly. Don't stress out. Say, try to make us laugh. Try to, bring in realia and props. So either you bring some stuff in or encourage them to bring it in. If it's a restaurant, they can bring in plates and silverware. Make sure everything is plastic if they're going to, or you can bring in like plates and silverware and tablecloth or something, and make sure stuff is plastic, not, glass or ceramic that it could break. And maybe even some, you can bring in some fruits or foods or something. If they're going to a clothing store and making a dialogue about asking for a larger size, asking for something in a specific color, they can bring in some of their clothes. And, the more that you make it real, like you are in a play or in a movie or in real life, the more fun it is. So encourage them to, if you're making the dialogue on this, bring these things in. Of course, if you're teaching online, it's even easier because you could just see them at home and they can have those. And you can do this online too. You can have, breakout rooms, or you can highlight people and still do, dialogues on Zoom. So how do we grade and how do we give feedback? So I mentioned this at the feedback seminar, that you give feedback at the end of the exercise. So for a fluency exercise like this or productive skills, don't interrupt. So that is going to be very demotivating and like throw them off and stress them out if you interrupt and try to correct them as they're speaking. So wait till the end to give feedback. And the feedback should be, so you should take notes while they are talking again, and don't give like overwhelming feedback, not too much. One way that you can make sure that you can like lessen the feedback, make sure it's not too many mistakes that they're making as they're speaking, is if you have given it as an in-class task, monitor them while they're writing. So if they are writing and you notice that they are writing something incorrect, that they would just get up there and say, ask them, is this correct? Is this, ask a stronger student, can you help them? Can you tell them, is this correct the way you say that? And then hopefully they will present with everything is correct, or as few mistakes as possible. Usually the mistakes will probably be with pronunciation, because if it's written ahead of time, hopefully everything is pretty good and practiced and correct. And then maybe when they're speaking, that might be when they're making mistakes. Provide the rest of the students in class with a listening task. So we always have, remember, a reason to listen. We always have a task. We are listening for some kind of information. So we don't want to have the students bored just listening and being like, okay, it's their turn to go. And you also don't want them so disengaged that they're just practicing their own thing in their head or looking at their paper and trying to memorize it. That's another reason why memorization is not so great. So for example, give them a task that they are supposed to listen for. So, for example, the job interview. Did the person get the job? Do you think she got the job? Why or why not? Were her answers good? Which answers were good? And this is also, it holds them accountable. It makes them responsible for listening. And it also has them talk about, it also gets them to, again, critical thinking, talking about the topic of what you are doing. And that's the true productive skill also, is they are now using spontaneous self-expression to speak about what they feel, and justify their opinions and what they witnessed there. You can also have students give feedback before the teacher does. Say, so how did that go? Were there some things they needed help with pronunciation? Were there some things they needed help with grammar? So don't ask in a way as like, well, what mistakes did they make, or what did they do wrong? Making sure it's very encouraging and supportive, but ask like that. It's always about, could they have help with this? And then, so if they know that they are held responsible for giving some feedback, then they will be, paying attention more, because they also find that fun. They love being, the teacher. But yeah, so that's how to give effective feedback from these kinds of things. And again, just focus on maybe 3 things at the most to give feedback about, and say something about the content of it yourself. Say, oh, I was surprised that, the mom said this, or wow, that's really crazy that you thought that this was in the Eiffel Tower was in, Belgium. So, show that you are paying attention to the content of what they're saying, and not just pointing out, grammatical errors and things like that. So, and these are such a great opportunity to do that, because it is so much like real life and real dialogues and real situations. So it's a great opportunity for that. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation part. So now we can go to question and answer and comments and sharing. Okay, hello everybody.
Yeah, just hellos. Greetings, Pamela.
Hellos. Okay. Yeah, has anybody done dialogues or had good experiences or not good experiences, or questions, or comments about what you think might not work, or
Pamela, I have a question about like dialogue. Sometimes we give students like phrases to make up dialogues.
Yeah.
And sometimes we ask just give the topic and ask students to make up dialogue. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Which of them is best?
It depends on the level of the student. So the more they have, the stronger their English is, and the more that they have experience writing dialogues with the phrases, and the more independent of a learner they are, then you can give them less prompt. But you always want to give them some idea of it. But if they are actively practicing grammar structures, then you want to give them certain phrases to use, and you want to give them that example dialogue to work from as well. Yeah, that's a good question. As I said, with the really highest level, you can just give them the idea and they don't even write it. They speak to each other, and it can be funny. Because we do that for drama class in our first language, improvisational skits. They give you a theme, a topic to work with, and it's like practicing to be an actor. But if we're in the English language class or the foreign language classroom, you do that with students that are very highly advanced, they're having fun, but they're also practicing the language.
Okay, the next question is about giving feedback. So what kind of feedback we can give for the content of the dialogue or for the acting, like?
No, you wouldn't want to give feedback on their acting, because that will just make them feel self-conscious. And you can say, I mean, you can, if you're going to give feedback on either acting or content, it should only be positive. It should just be, oh, you were so funny, or you were so, silly, or this was funny when you did this. Or I was so interested to know about, that your mother taught you that. So just give like positive remarks about that, but don't tell them like, oh, well, you need to act better next time, or you need to act more happy if, you just came to another country and you're a tourist. Like, that's because we're only give feedback on what you have assigned. You're assigning using vocabulary, pronouncing things correctly, using the words correctly, using grammar correctly, and having, fluency practice. So it's good to remark positively about the other things, about how they're acting and what the content is, to show that you're paying attention, but not, I mean, we're not training actors here or, we're not, or, theater movie stars or anything. So yeah, that's not necessary to coach their acting. It's just for fun.
Mm-hmm. Next question is about dialogues again. Sometimes we teachers give students read the dialogues to learn by heart. What do you think? Is it effective, or students should make their own dialogues?
Yeah, it's so at a lower level, it's good to read them and to check comprehension, but memorizing something and then just repeating it without checking that they really understand what they're saying is not beneficial. So what they need to really understand is what the meaning of the words are and how to properly use those grammar structures. So it's more important to have them read the dialogue, and then they can read it out loud. This is one time when, if they're at a low level, reading out loud a dialogue is actually pretty beneficial. Reading out loud usually is not like, you don't want to just read a paragraph out loud, but yeah, reading out loud where you have one student plays this part and the other student plays this part. Okay, you read, and reading through. A little bit of that is fine, especially in smaller classes, so everybody gets a chance. But yeah, just memorizing it is not really that beneficial. I've had classes where I've been asked to do that, and it didn't really help me much. But what did help me was having the comprehension questions, really understanding what those things were, and being able to answer questions about it, and then have a discussion about what the reading was, whether it was a text or a dialogue. If you have a discussion about it and you're asking these WH questions about it, then that's concept checking, that's checking for understanding, and that's what we want from the students. Yeah, but just memorization, it like I mentioned, you could memorize something in a foreign language you don't understand, and you could say it perfectly, but it doesn't mean you really understand what you've said.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
no other questions?
Yeah, we haven't got.
Yeah.
About role playing, like drama.
Mm-hmm.
So can we use like a drum in our
like a play?
Yes.
Yeah, for more advanced students, that's a fun one. Yeah, you can. I mean, it would take a while. The reason that I would suggest sticking to the textbook is that it's just difficult to find the right kind of thing. Of course, authentic materials are always the best, and to learn about plays and drama and theater from the English language, speaking world is fantastic. It's just so much work, for you to do that research and to make sure it's the right kind of topic and it's appropriate for the students. It fits. It doesn't have, the level is correct and all that. Usually that's why some textbooks, especially as you get to the higher levels, a lot of them already integrate authentic materials and those kinds of things into the texts and into the listening sometimes too. So if you're using a really good textbook that is very challenging, usually sometimes it will have like a real news article, or maybe it might have some dialogue from a real play, a real work of theater. So I would say, stick to the text unless you find something. I mean, you can go online and say, lesson plan using this kind of play. Stay away from Shakespeare just because that's, so difficult to read. Even for native speakers, we need, to be taught, you need to be taught by somebody who's trained in Shakespeare speech for that. But there's modern plays and modern theater that might be fun for that kind of thing. And you can look, maybe there's already lesson plans that are based on that. Sure. But what we want most, though, is that they are producing their own. So it's always best that they're going to be writing their own dialogues and role plays. So you can bring in a play once in a while as like an example, but we don't want them to just be memorizing or just reading it out. We want to push them to write their own, think about what they need to know in these certain situations, what they are. So Laili, I'm answering that right now, that it can be fun as an example, but what we really want them to do is to produce on their own. So writing their own and speaking their own dialogues and creating that, figuring out how to, with correct English, correct grammar, express this and use these new vocabularies and be in this situation as a tourist, as a waiter, as a family member, as friends that want to go to the movies, or somebody calling, so all that kind of thing. So authentic materials for productive, not as dire, I would say, not as super important.
We have a question from Laila Qochqarbayeva.
I just saw that and I answered as I read it. So
okay, Pamela, thank you very much. It was very interesting topic and discussion. I hope we'll meet next week. We'll discuss what topic are we going to discuss next week via WhatsApp. Teachers also can send me via WhatsApp what topics they want to discuss with you next week. Thank you very much, Pamela. Have a good night, dear teachers. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope we'll meet next week.
Yes.
Have a good day.
Good day, everybody. Bye. Thank you for coming.